Welcome back to Outside Views. Today's topic is one of those quietly devastating stories that reveals the true long-term cost of Brexit. Because Britain's Brexit divorce bill won't be fully paid off until the year 2064. Yeah, you had that right, 2064. That means the UK will still be paying the bill for Brexit almost 50 years after the referendum. And for context, that is longer than most mortgages. It's a full generation from now. It's money that your children and possibly even their children will still be handing over to the European Union. And as always, you know that I'm clear with you. I am not British, but I still believe that Brexit was a terrible mistake. And what's happening now is further proof of just how costly that mistake really was. But let's look at the numbers. According to the UK's Office for Budget Responsibility, or OBR, the final Brexit divorce payment will be made in 2064. And the overall sum comes to £37.1 billion. And this figure was agreed by Theresa May's government back in 2017, when the terms of the UK's withdrawal were being negotiated with the European Union. The payments are being spread out over decades. But why? Because part of the deal includes long-term financial obligations. These include the UK's share of EU spending commitments made while it was still a member. And they also include contributions to the pensions of current and former EU employees. Yeah, you heard that right. The UK will still be paying for EU officials' pensions for the next 4 decades, because there were British ones as well. And this wasn't a hidden clause. It was part of the withdrawal agreement. But it's only now that many people are waking up to the sheer timescale involved. Some officials have said that Britain could pay the amount earlier if both sides agreed. But as it stands, the government has no intention of accelerating those payments. But why? Because in the words of a senior Treasury official, you don't want to bring your bills forward. And just like in household finances, you might prefer to spread the cost over time. But here's the reality. This long tail of payments is a burden on the public purse. It ties up resources. It limits spending flexibility. And it's a constant reminder of a decision that has had enormous financial consequences. When Brexit was being sold to the public, nobody talked about 2064. No one said, vote leave so your great-grandchildren can help pay off the divorce bill. In fact, people were told the opposite. They were promised that leaving the EU would save money, that there would be an extra £350 million a week for the NHS, and that Britain would be free to spend as it pleased. And that promise has aged poorly. Not only in the NHS not better funded, Britain is still sending money to Brussels. Not because it wants to, of course, but because it legally agreed to. Because that's what leaving responsibly means. You don't just walk away from commitments. You honor them. And the pro-Brexit narrative was built on fantasy economics. But reality has arrived. And it's written in invoices. So Project Fear became Project Reality a long time ago. And it's embedded in every line of the national accounts. It's a cost that will sit quietly in the budget for the next 40 years. And it's a cost that was completely avoidable. And we also have to consider the broader costs. The Treasury allocated £3 billion just to help government departments prepare for Brexit. And the Home Office received nearly £400 million. The Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs got over £300 million. HM Revenue and Customs received £260 million. And that's not money being spent on schools. It's not money going into hospitals. It's money being spent on bureaucracy, on rewriting trade regulations, on setting up new IT systems, on duplicating structures the UK already had when it was inside the EU. But let's go further. Brexit has affected every layer of government. Local authorities had to conduct legal reviews of EU-derived laws. Universities lost access to funding from EU science programs. British students lost the right to study across Europe under Erasmus+. Businesses face delays, tariffs and non-tariff barriers. Agriculture is dealing with new subsidy schemes that are confusing, inconsistent and suddenly stopped. And manufacturing is plagued by uncertainty in cross-border supply chains. And even touring musicians and artists face visa restrictions. And all of this is not just a political inconvenience, it's economic erosion. The OBR estimates, as you probably know, that the UK economy will be 4% smaller in the long term than it would have been without Brexit. And 4% doesn't sound like a lot, but over time it's a massive hole. It means billions less in GDP, billions less in tax revenue, and billions less to invest in housing, infrastructure, education and health. And it also means that Britain is less resilient. When you combine slower growth with high debt, with rising interest rates, with climate challenges, with global instability, you get a weaker foundation. And this is why Brexit is not just a mistake of the past. It's a crisis of the present and a crisis of the future. Eloise Todd from the campaign group Best for Britain called the divorce bill another absolute Brexit shocker. She said, "We already knew the cost of Brexit would fall on the shoulders of our children and grandchildren. Now we are told even our great-grandchildren will have a bill to pay." And that statement isn't hyperbole, it's a reflection of the facts. Britain signed a deal that comes with decades of payments. And whether you voted leave or remain, it is vital to face that truth. Brexit was never free. It was never simple. And it certainly wasn't cheap. And the irony is stunning. One of the rallying cries of Brexit was to escape the tyranny of EU bureaucracy. And yet the UK now faces more red tape, more regulatory fragmentation, and more complex trade administration than ever before. Brexit was supposed to bring savings. Instead, it brought an endless tab, one that doesn't just affect numbers on a spreadsheet. It affects real people, workers, families, pensioners. It affects opportunity. It affects security. It affects Britain's role in the world. And this is the reality of trying to run a modern economy in a globalized world without being part of a major trading bloc. And don't get me started on CPTPP here. The UK lost leverage, it lost scale, and now it's paying the price, literally. But what does the government say? They try to deflect. They talk about sovereignty, they talk about global Britain, they talk about trade deals with Australia, with Japan, and with whoever they can get on the phone anymore. And even the Labour government does. But none of those deals come close to replacing the EU. They are politically useful, but economically marginal. And the reset is still one of those bubbles. And meanwhile, the EU moves on. It signs new agreements, it invests in common infrastructure, it builds collective resilience, and Britain sits outside. Still writing checks, still tied to past commitments, but without a seat at the table. That is not independence, that is isolation. But what comes next? The UK could continue along this path, or it could begin to rethink its relationship with the EU. It could start with a veterinary agreement, for example. It could move to a customs arrangement. I talked about this twice this week. And it could deepen cooperation on defense, research and security. That wouldn't undo Brexit, but it would recognize its failures. It would signal maturity, and it would offer hope. Hope that the UK can find a way to rebuild its economy without burdening future generations with the cost of more political fantasy. And for those starting, we just can stop paying, then all the deals are off the table, and then I don't want to see the long-term Brexit bill will be gone, but I don't want to see the higher cost that will bring if the UK should ever do that. But should the UK be negotiating a new financial and trade relationship with the EU to reduce these burdens, like a customs union? Please let me know in the comments below the video, and if you appreciate detailed analysis like this, be sure to like the video and subscribe to Outside Views, where we dig beneath the headlines to reveal the truth. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, and the next video is right here in the end screen.